Ah, fuck.
Bless you, Brykks.
Thanks, buddy.
Stay healthy, bro.
Last week we talked about one of Season 4's new weapons, the CR56 or the Galil remake. However, it's time to talk about the other new gun, the Fennec Smg. And much like the CR56, the Fennec is also a remade weapon formerly known as the Vector. Yes, the Vector had its place in Modern Warfare 2, and just like any other normal 7-year-old, I put in quite a few hours into this game. However, my time with the Vector was short-lived, to say the least. I mean, it wasn't the best of guns, but it certainly wasn't something to write home about, that's for sure. Whenever I think of the gun Vector from MW2, I think of the cereal Vector. You guys remember that cereal? You had the Vector cereal, which was basically just like cornflakes, pretty mediocre, kind of like the weapon it was in MW2. And then you got fucking Kellogg's coming out of left field and just jizzes all over the cornflakes and calls it Frosted Flakes. Like, yeah, okay Vector, I'm gonna eat your plain ass cornflakes. How about you get some of Tony T's ejaculate over there, then we'll talk. So when you ask me why I like Frosted Flakes over Vector, that's the answer you're gonna get. It's pretty black and white, plain and simple. And that pretty much sums up the Vector in MW2 as well. You know, you got this mediocre gun, but for the last 10 years, the studio over at Infinity Ward has just been blasting rope on this gun, trying to make it into something that it isn't, and now we have the Fennec. And this gun absolutely shreds, but we need to get started here. We need to put this gun to the test, run it through some damage tests, some range tests, you got it, and see once and for all if this gun is in fact the best SMG. I'm pretty sure it is. I haven't tested it yet. This gun is just, it's disgusting. It needs to be nerfed. Anyways, let's go. Get things started here with the damage, and let's be honest here, we're just going to be doing some light tickling. We're using the Fennec here. This is not a hard-hitting weapon, we all know that. The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is the fire rate, and boy do I have a sweet tooth. Still nice to see how much damage this weapon's doing. So up close, the Fennec is going to be killing in 3 to 5 shots. Now comparing it with the MP7, which is its direct comparable weapon, they actually have the exact same damage charts at close range. And we might as well throw in the MP5 just because it is one of the most popular SMGs in this game, see how it stacks up. And while both guns take 3 shots to kill at the head, the hard-hitting nature of the MP5, no surprise here, is going to make it kill in 1 less bullet to anywhere except the head. Let's move on to medium range. So now to the limbs, we're going to be doing 16 points of damage. The lower body is 18 as well as the chest is 18. And finally the headshot is going to be doing 29 points of damage. So at close range the Fennec was 3 to 5 shots to kill. Now at medium range it's going to be 4 to 7 shots. Loses quite a bit of its power at medium range. Comparing it to the MP7, it's the exact same once again, 4 to 7 shots. Now the MP5 on the other hand really holds its ground. It's a 3 to 5 shot kill now, as opposed to a 3 to 4 shot kill at close range. So to the head the MP5 is going to kill in 1 less shot. To everywhere else it's going to kill in 2 less shots. That's pretty significant. Let's finish this off at long range. 13 damage to the limbs, 15 damage to the lower body and the chest. And finally for the headshot we're going to be doing 24 points of damage. So for medium to long range, the gap isn't as big as close to medium range for the Fennec. We moved down to a 5 to 8 shot kill for the Fennec. Now for the first time we see some differences between the MP7 and the Fennec. The MP7 is 1 point damage more powerful than a Fennec. This doesn't mean too much right now, it will for Warzone, but for right now it's just going to make a headshot require 1 less bullet to kill compared to the Fennec. The MP5 kind of slows down its powerful gap when it hits long range, this time only having a 2-shot advantage on the limbs, whereas everything else is just a 1-shot. So to recap, the Fennec and the MP7 have the exact same damage, except when it gets into long range it's a little bit different. The MP5 is of course more powerful than the Fennec, requiring 1 to 2 less bullets to kill in almost all situations. But that's enough about damage, we gotta move on into range. To test the range I've got the health set to 25. I'm going to take a shot and it's not going to be enough to kill this man, but if I take 1 step closer, I will now enter the close range to medium range threshold at 11 meters. I do the same thing to find the medium to long range threshold. Take a shot, doesn't kill him. Take 1 step further, this will be enough to kill him, so I know I'm in the range. Here we have it marked in at 24 meters. Let's go ahead and visualize this on Shoot House. So with the Fennec, there is your close range. Anything past this white line is medium range, and then anything past that is going to be long range. Here we have the MP7 has the exact same close range, but then the medium range falls a little bit short of the Fennec. The MP5 has the best initial close range, but then the medium range actually falls short of both weapons. So all in all, not too much of a difference between these three weapons. We can clean things up here and get a better look. Here we have the Fennec with the 11 and 24 meter ranges, and the respective bullets to kill within each range. Now, I gotta be honest here, seeing the Fennec with the greatest range of these weapons, minus the initial close range, which is given to the MP5, I'm a little surprised because typically these fast-firing SMGs do not have the best range within the class. I expected the MP5 to take over that role, if you will. But I went and did a little more test, a test that I don't usually do because I noticed this while I've been using the Fennec. I want to take a look at bullet velocity. So I lined up all three weapons, I take a shot at the exact same time and see how long it takes to get a hit marker. And it's hard to see even in super slow motion, but we are talking about bullet velocities here. But the math is telling me that the MP5 on the right has a bullet velocity that is double the speed of the Fennec. The MP7 is a little bit faster than the Fennec, but yeah, even though technically the Fennec has the biggest range, the bullet velocity is a real big hindrance. You're going to have a much tougher time trying to land shots with the Fennec compared to, say, the MP5, which is going to be shooting bullets twice as fast as the Fennec. So yeah, great range on the Fennec, but it's going to be hard to land those shots because of its bullet velocity. Let's move on to the fire rate and time to kill. So we need to do some fire rate tests before we can get into time of kill. We're going to be shooting 25 rounds in 1.33 seconds. Doing some quick math shows that this weapon shoots at about 600 billion rounds per minute. That's pretty fast. I think that's probably the fastest weapon I've ever tested. We can obviously compare these with the MP7 and the MP5. And we can see the Fennec has a much greater rounds per minute compared to these other weapons. Now that we've got that all figured out, we can move on to one of the most crucial weapon stats, the time to kill. Let's take a look at the Fennec versus the MP7 first. So we've got our three ranges here. Now everything in green means the Fennec is going to kill quicker than the purple, which is the MP7. And of course I always have to say this, there's the head, there's the chest, the lower body, and the limbs. Obviously there's a countless number of ways that you can hit people with. You can shoot 2 to the balls, 1 to the titties, and 1 to the schnoz. So these charts always represent the majority of situations, and as we can see, the Fennec says I'm your daddy straight up to the MP7. I mean, it just cleans the charts here. The only advantage the MP7 has is at long range when shooting to the head, but let's be honest, unless you're shooting at Charlie Kirk, that's a tall task to complete. We can check out the Warzone stats here. Very reminiscent of last week's Galil, the CR56 AMAX versus the M4. We saw the exact same thing. Unlike the MP7, if we take a look at the MP5, the MP5 just comes in hot and says, listen here Buster, I've got a reputation to hold up here. This is probably the most even heat map I've done. The Fennec obviously tries to hold its ground at close range, but you get that same time to kill with the limbs, which are pretty big pieces of the body. So maybe if you got some good aim, that's not too big of a deal breaker. In range, however, the MP5 says, get that shit out of here, I'm taking over. All blue balls, blue body, just the way we like it. In long range we got a little bit of a healthy hybrid, but countering in super slow bullet velocity we just discussed, I think the MP5 takes the long range as well. So happy to see that the Fennec is not just balls to the wall OP as shit. We've got some competition here. Let's take a look at Warzone. You kind of got the same pattern here. The Fennec still reigns at close range. I'd say the MP5 is doing pretty hot at medium range, but interesting enough, at long range the Fennec actually takes over the body section, the chest and the lower body at long range. But of course you have to factor in that low bullet velocity, and it's pretty hard to hit shots at this range anyways. But kind of the same idea as multiplayer. These two guns look very balanced when it comes to time to kill. I'm very impressed with Infinity Ward. The MP7 on the other hand was just shit in the bed. It didn't bring its A game. Maybe it can bounce back in these last few tests. I don't know, it took a beating, it might be out for the fight, but let's go on to Recoil now. Alright, we got the Fennec here. Let's slap on the MP7 and the MP5 and go to town. And it's clear to see here the Fennec is just pumping away. The MP5 is on the other side of the spectrum. It's very steady. I like that recoil pattern. Then we have the MP7 sitting somewhere in the middle. Still doing a little bit better than I thought it would. The Fennec has a very unusual recoil pattern going up and to the left. Most weapons go up to the right, so it can make handling it quite a task. Nevertheless, that recoil is quite high for the SMG weapon class, and therefore comes in with the biggest spread of recoil. The MP7's a bit easier to handle, plus it sticks to that traditional upright recoil. And then the MP5, holy shit, I almost shit my shorts. That's 2800 pixels right there. That is nothing. That's like shooting a water gun, for crying out loud. But let's finish this video off with some quick mobility tests. Let's do an aim down sight speed test. Now this might surprise you here. If you look very closely, very carefully, the MP5 actually has the fastest aim down sight speed. It is 1 frame quicker than the Fennec and the MP7. So 1 frame isn't too big of a difference, but the fact that the MP5 technically has a quicker aim down sight speed is pretty remarkable if you ask me. I did not expect to see that. And just to humble the Fennec a little bit more, if we take a look at reload speed, we'll see the Fennec has the slowest reload speed by quite a bit actually. So for the Fennec to come around and tout how mobile and agile it is, you know, it does have some downfalls. Alright, so that's all I want to test for these weapons. We did a pretty good in-depth job. Now after learning about these results, I can say that the Fennec isn't quite as good as I thought it was. Now with that being said, I think we have two situations here. We have Warzone and we have multiplayer. For multiplayer, the Fennec is my new favorite SMG. You've got its insane fire rate, you've got its modest damage, and you've got its range, which is surprisingly the best out of the SMGs. There's really no reason to not use the Fennec in multiplayer. The MP7 is completely off the table. That shit is gone. We do not talk about the MP7 when it comes to multiplayer. You might be able to make a case for the MP5, and I think just depending on your playstyle, the MP5 may be your favorite SMG, but for me, I know for a fact that I should be using the Fennec whenever I'm playing multiplayer. On Warzone, that's a whole different story. On Warzone, I would describe the Fennec as being unforgiving. Its fast fire rate combined with its ability to only have a 40-round mag is going to make taking out multiple enemies very hard to do. Warzone is just too versatile, it's just too unknown, you just don't know what you're going to get whenever you hop into a game. With multiplayer, I know the engagements I'm going to get, I can stick to the lanes that are going to benefit me with the Fennec. Warzone, that's just not an easy task to do, so we're throwing it off the table for Warzone. I leave the MP7 and the MP5 for my SMGs of choice of Warzone. I did an in-depth video on those two guns and only those two guns if you're interested in learning more about the pluses and differences between those two guns. But yeah, let's just leave it on the note of multiplayer. The Fennec is my new go-to SMG for multiplayer. It is just dummying kids. I need to wrap this video up. It's got to be at least 67,000 degrees Celsius in my room right now. I need to go and bathe myself, cleanse myself from the dirty Fennec. Alright, see ya.